It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from Paris. Our top story. Celebrations after a shock result in the French parliamentary elections as the exit polls suggest the far right has failed to win. Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party is now predicted to take third place with a left-wing coalition the likely winner. The Prime Minister offers to resign as France looks to be heading towards a hung parliament. We'll have analysis and reaction live from Paris.
Also to come on the programme tonight, Sir Keir Starmer starts his tour of the UK in Scotland with a promise to reset the relationship with the nations. The battle for the future of the Conservatives as attention turns to Rishi Sunak's likely successors. England fans dare to dream as the team marches towards the semi-finals. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30.
Good evening. A shock here in France tonight as the exit polls predict that Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party has failed to win the French parliamentary election. They had won the first round of voting and were widely predicted to win tonight. But let's just show you what the latest exit poll suggests will happen. Have a look at this. The poll projects a hung parliament, but that the left-wing coalition led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon has come first with 182 to 193 seats. President Macron's centrist Ensemble has come second with 157 to 163 seats. And despite winning the first round, Marine Le Pen's National Rally has come third with a projected 136 to 144 seats. Our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons has our first report tonight.
This was the biggest surprise in French politics for generations. A country that seemed poised to put its faith in the far right, suddenly, dramatically changing direction. Instead, it is a left-wing coalition that will be France's biggest political group, immediately demanding power.
The Popular Front is ready to govern. The elements on the left, united, have shown that they were able to deal with this extraordinary historical situation. So what will we do now? Once again, save the Republic.
But Mélenchon is unpopular, even within his own coalition. He is unlikely to have the support to become Prime Minister. But the job will very soon be vacant. The present Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, says he will resign. France is in a state of flux. A week ago, it seemed certain that the National Rally Party of Marine Le Pen were on course for a thumping parliamentary victory. They had the champagne ready after dominating the first round of this election. But the exit poll came as a thumping blow, reduced to third place and to stoic smiles. Marine Le Pen still acclaimed like a triumphant hero, even in the wake of defeat. Marine Le Pen is putting on a brave face, but she must be crestfallen. She spent decades building up her party with the ambition of taking power in Parliament, the next step towards a presidential run. And yet here, all those dreams have been dashed. She was thwarted by her opponents ganging up on her. Her protégé, Jordan Bardella, had been primed to become Prime Minister. He was defiant.
I would like to tell you that my intention, in fact, is stronger than ever. I will be there. I will be there for you, with you, right until the victory. So this evening is just the beginning. An old world has fallen.
What thwarted them was a coalition of opponents who joined forces in hundreds of constituencies to put all the votes behind just one candidate. And what we found were voters who had come out just to stop the RN. How important is this election for France?
Very important, because this is like fascism going to the power. So it's very, very important for me to prove that fascism is not part of France, and we are going to beat them in the street if they are elected.
The possibility of who's going to be elected is going to go the opposite direction of what population needs, as much as the population of this country as well as Europe and also the entire planet.
If we don't do anything in France, it's going to be, we are going to see, because next time it's probably going to be time for Bordella. Bordella.
You're worried about him? You're
Yes.
scared of him?
Yes.
Emmanuel Macron, the president, had stunned his nation by calling this election, apparently sure that the French would turn against the far right. They did, but they didn't provide a clear answer. One of the world's most influential nations is mired in uncertainty.
And Adam is here with me live. Adam, you've just come from the National Rally headquarters. I mean, a remarkable upset. They just looked absolutely stunned.
Yeah, I mean, devastated, bewildered almost to an extent. They came to that party, they had the champagne. They thought they were going to at least be the biggest party. I think they didn't think they were going to get the absolute majority. And then came that moment of realization. The exit poll coming up, and as we've seen, those numbers are tightening now. They look destined to be the third party. And I think for the National Rally, this is a really seismic moment. They thought they were on the brink. Remember, this is a party that's gone through iterations. Jean-Marie Le Pen, who got to a presidential runoff and was thrashed because the whole political establishment got behind him. Marine then trying to detoxify, changes the name from the National Front, Rassemblement National. She gets to the last presidential runoff, gets over 40%, and she thinks this is going to be the crowning moment when she has convinced France that this is a safe party to back. And tonight that comes crashing down. So what does it tell us, Yad? It tells us, I think, that there is still a natural limit to how many people will get behind the National Rally. And it tells us nothing, which is that people either love this party or they hate them. Because this wasn't just about a normal election. They were right. Jordan Bardella said tonight, the political establishment ganged up on us. And he's absolutely right. They did. Everyone else came up with an alliance to stop the National Rally winning. They achieved that. The question now is what happens next. We don't know. Gabriel Attal has resigned. Jean-Luc Mélenchon says he wants to be Prime Minister. That I don't think is going to happen. I think the most likely option is a socialist gets that job. And just here's one to look out for. François Hollande, a towering figure from France politics. He's back today. He won his seat. He is a sleeper candidate, I think, to be the next Prime Minister.
Wow, so many extraordinary surprises. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. Let's bring in our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who joins me now live. And Dominic, you've been out in the streets of Paris all day. There was concern that there would be riots in the streets tonight. Thousands of riot police deployed in and around Paris, 30,000 across the country. But that has now turned to some form of celebration.
Yeah, well, there was fear, there was foreboding, a real sense that there could have been a lot of unrest on the streets of Paris. Now we just have a sense of euphoria, celebration. It's a street party here, and people, I think, are going to be celebrating well into the night. As one young woman just said to me, the left has very little to celebrate these days. It's been the battle with the presidency after another vote in which they've lost. Finally, hope and something for them to celebrate. And I think that sense of relief isn't going to be contained just to France, but also amongst France's allies. The prospect of a far-right government controlling Parliament and having some strange cohabitation with Emmanuel Macron was deeply alarming to across the West. It could have caused enormous problems with but also I think allies just not believe what Le Pen and the rest of the leadership of her party was saying about Putin, about Russia, deeply suspicious about their attitudes to the war in Ukraine and to the whole rule-based world order. Of our needs about what follows, unless some kind of compromise, some modus vivendi can be found between a left-wing controlled parliament and and for a country as consequential as France is, in Europe, across the world, in its struggle, with Russia and with the rules-based world order, I think the prospect of instability, gridlock, political chaos is still very alarming for France's allies. And if they can't compromise, everyone knows the far right is waiting and still just getting stronger, waiting in the wings for its next best moment.
Dom, thank you so much for all of your reporting and analysis there. Well, an extraordinary evening here, dramatic result. We thought that the far right, the National Rally, were on the doorsteps of power, the gates of power, and now, in fact, we've seen the reverse. But there is still a lot of uncertainty here in France tonight as this nation takes a big sigh of relief, but they'll have to wait and see how this unfolds in the days and weeks to come. But for now, back to you in London, Gillian.
Yalda, thank you. Well, here the Prime Minister has kicked off his tour of the UK nations this evening on a visit to Scotland, promising to reset the relationship. And he said to start delivering straight away. Well, he's got a busy week ahead with visits to Northern Ireland and Wales before a meeting with England's Metro mayors. All part of the goal he announced yesterday to establish a better way of working and recognising all four nations. Our Scotland correspondent, Conor Gillis, reports from Edinburgh.
They're back from irrelevance in Scotland, back as the biggest party.
I asked people in Scotland to put their trust and faith in Labour. I said that if they did so, we would deliver for Scotland. And that's why I wanted to stand here today, to make good on that promise, to make good on that commitment at the first opportunity.
His UK government may be the first in many years to have a mandate here in Scotland. But this is a Prime Minister now on the diplomatic rounds, attempting to repair strained relations between Edinburgh and London.
And this is what the charm offensive looks like. Starmer's first official visit, meeting SNP First Minister John Swinney. A bold statement in this new political chapter.
Well, there are clearly differences of opinion between us on some of the constitutional issues. But the point of this meeting was to reset the relationship in a respectful way, in a constructive way.
John Swinney seems to think that there will be an independence referendum within the next 5 years. Is he correct on that?
I've been clear about the priorities of my government, and they're about delivery for Scotland.
The SNP's licking its wounds from an election hammering at the hands of Labour, many questioning whether that heavy defeat kills off independence discussions.
The 2021 election elected a parliament that exists today that's got a parliamentary majority in favour of the objective of Scottish independence and the delivery of that independence through a referendum, and I think the democratic will of the people of Scotland from that election should be respected.
The political rough and tumble may have taken a sidestep briefly. Some now crave political consensus.
It's nice that he came up so early. It shows he's actually kind of keen to change things, hopefully he does get things done.
Obviously in Scotland we need to reset our ideas about independence.
Have to change, and it's really heartening to hear that, you know, Keir's already doing a tour, getting to grips with what the SNP want from a Labour government, and I really hope that that relationship bears fruit.
Scotland's political landscape is fragile. The Prime Minister knows that. He now has to deliver what he's promised in a country that remains split on its future. Conor Gillis, Sky News, Edinburgh.
Meanwhile, the new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has announced the government's first steps to tackle small boat crossings after scrapping the Rwanda deportation policy. She set out plans to appoint a new border security commander and proposals for new counter-terror-style powers to crack down on the smuggling gangs behind the crossings.
The Conservatives ran this scheme for 2.5 years and sent simply 4 volunteers, as well as hundreds of millions of pounds. I will be auditing all of the details around the money and the legislation and the processes, and I will set out more details to Parliament. But the first step in our approach to all of these issues is to make sure we are putting the money instead into boosting our border security, and that is why we are today launching the Border Security Command process.
Our political correspondent Amanda Acass is in Westminster for us tonight. And Amanda, Yvette Cooper setting out her plans there, but she's not the only new cabinet minister setting out their stall today.
Yes, there's been an absolute blizzard of announcements from across Whitehall today, with Sir Keir Starmer's new Secretaries of State all really determined to show that they're out and about and hitting the ground running. So establishing this new border security command is a big priority for the government, because Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to scrap the Rwanda plan, which is the Tories' controversial alternative to tackling the small boats crisis, is going to be a really big test for them. It means that they're going to be hiring new teams with expertise on tackling the people smuggling gangs, as well as giving them new counter-terror powers. But it is controversial. We also don't know how much money it's going to exactly cost. It was due to be funded with £75 million a year from the Rwanda plan. But as we heard Yvette Cooper discussing there's going to be an audit of how much of that money has already been spent and how much will be possible to claw back from that. Now, meanwhile, David Lammy, he's been out and about across Europe as well, meeting with his German, Polish and Swedish counterparts. We're told he's resetting relationships with them. And then the Defence Secretary, John Healey, he went straight from that first meeting of Cabinet in Downing Street on a plane to Ukraine. He's been meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine, really to reaffirm the UK's absolute commitment, we're told, to the people of Ukraine. Also announcing a big new funding package for military aid, including 500,000 new artillery rounds, artillery guns, and also 90 new missiles. Not to be left out, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, he's also put out an announcement today telling us that he's going to be meeting with the British Dentists Association tomorrow to discuss the 700,000 new promised dental appointments. So after so long in opposition, it's not really surprising that we're hearing so much from Labour. They know the clock's already ticking on starting to deliver on their promises.
Amanda, thank you. Well, the Conservatives are having to get used to being in opposition for the first time since 2010, after their worst election result in history. Now, there are fundamental questions about the party's future and who should lead it. While no one has formally thrown their hat into the ring yet, a number of people are seen as contenders. Outgoing Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch is seen as the frontrunner and is the current bookies' favourite. Suella Braverman, who gained a reputation for her hardline stance on immigration, is also expected to be in the running. James Cleverly is currently being talked about in moderate Tory circles as a candidate who could unify the party. The outgoing Security Minister and former soldier, Tom Tugendhat, could also be a contender. Priti Patel, who served as Home Secretary under Boris Johnson, is a prominent figure on the right who has also been tipped as a potential candidate. Former Housing Secretary Robert Jenrick has been suggested as a possibility. And Victoria Atkins hasn't ruled herself out of replacing Rishi Sunak as leader of the Conservatives. Sky's political correspondent Darren McCaffrey reports.
This has been a very difficult night.
The Conservative Party has let you down.
The scale of our crushing defeat.
There aren't many things Conservatives have agreed on recently, but the scale and scope of the defeat on Thursday is forcing the party to face some hard truths. Not least of all, who will lead them in opposition.
Whoever comes forward they come forward with a plan of how to unite the party, bring us back together. As I say, I think the biggest challenge for us is unity. And I think the lesson, if we haven't learnt it yet, then we really will be in trouble, is that we have to present a united front to the country.
This weekend, no one has formally declared, but it is becoming increasingly clear who might run, even if they aren't quite saying it.
My absolute focus at the moment, and the reason I came on today, was genuinely not to talk about leadership, because this is not the moment for this.
I honestly don't think that 3 days on from a general election in which we've just lost so many of our friends and colleagues, that it is right to have self-indulgent conversations like this.
And the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who's almost certain to run, didn't hold back in the Sunday Telegraph, describing the campaign as an idiotic strategy, that voters aren't mugs, we failed in office and deserve this result. For the Conservatives, there are no easy answers. There are largely two camps. Those who want to tack to the right and see reform as a bigger threat, and those who want a more centrist approach to take on the Lib Dems and Labour. And then there are those, including Marcus Fish, who lost his seat, who want a more radical approach.
If it was me in charge, I would just dissolve the party and I would start
something fresh.
Let's be clear about this. You want to destroy the current Conservative Party as it is?
Yes, I think it needs to be dissolved as an entity, and I think a new party needs to phoenix out of its ashes.
MPs return to Westminster on Tuesday, and for the Conservatives, it's not just going to be a battle over who leads the party, but a battle over the process too, with some arguing that it needs to be sorted soon, by the end of the summer, others suggesting that the Conservatives need time to think and that it should ultimately be put off until the autumn. Whatever they decide, candidates will start to formally declare soon, and debates will be had. But the fear for the Conservatives is rather than healing divisions, this leadership campaign will only divide them further. Darren McCaffrey, Sky News, Westminster.
The Irish Prime Minister has spoken with Sir Keir Starmer. Simon Harris told Sky News that EU leaders will give the leader a fair hearing when it comes to potential changes to the post-Brexit deal with the UK.
I do absolutely think there would be a fair hearing for any proposal that the British government, or indeed that the EU has, about ironing out practical issues in terms of having a relationship that works. You know, Brexit has happened. The people of Britain have made that decision. But absolutely, is there space to have a veterinary agreement? Is there space in terms of student mobility? Is there space to work closer together on issues? I think there absolutely is. And I do think there would be a willingness in Europe to have those conversations in due course, should that be the wish of the British government.
The funeral of rugby league legend and motor neurone disease campaigner Rob Burrow has taken place this afternoon. It was a private service, but members of the public were invited to line the route of the funeral cortege in Pontefract. After 5 flawless penalties saw England march onwards to the Euro semi-finals, back home supporters are daring to dream. And it's not just the fans who are celebrating. England's progress in Germany has seen pub sales increase by a fifth, as our business correspondent Adele Robinson reports.
As England fans dare to dream, young footballers in Oxford are fully immersed in Euros fever, despite scepticism elsewhere.
I think they need to be quiet and just support the team. We're England fans, so no matter what happens, you still got to support your country. It's about passion.
And do you genuinely believe they could win this? They will
win it, I believe. We're going to win it, and Saka's going to score 95th minute.
England's win over Switzerland on penalties, a last-minute scrape through to the semi-finals. And just like the weather here, emotions have been up and down.
How were you during the penalties?
Well, I'm only 25, so you can see the effect it's had on me.
Come on! You can't really tell until the very last second. They might just pull it out of the bag, and you've just got to be a little bit supportive and hopeful, I think.
There's every possibility, and especially with how a lot of the games have been going where they've gone to penalties, that is kind of down to luck, and the luck could work in our favours.
Pubs like Brian's also welcoming any England success, with sales up by a fifth as his industry battles a decline.
Usually 200 people. Yesterday, max capacity 360. Yeah. So it would be as many people as we can possibly fit in the pub legally. That's what which is great to see, you know.
And England's chances of winning, some hopeful realism, perhaps.
We've just played bad teams, so it'll be interesting to see if we play better against a good team.
I don't think we're going to do great. We might still win if we score late winners and jammy penalties.
Is there a tiny hope that they might?
Yeah, if we win, it won't be deserved. There'll be some lucky win penalties or something.
Still a chance they've got this far, as fans try not to dream too much. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
So, some dates for your diaries. After England's win yesterday, they will next play the Netherlands in the semi-final on Wednesday in Dortmund. And if they manage to beat the Netherlands and make it all the way, they will face either Spain or France in the final next Sunday in Berlin. Oh, can't think that far ahead. Let's get the latest sports news now from Alison.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Can you please welcome a man with insights as sharp as a well-timed tackle, an 8-time Premier League winner, an England stalwart for 12 years.
Stalwart.
But a Valencia manager for only 4 months. It's the very bad boy, Gary, the treble, Neville!
Yes!
And his opponent, he's a Liverpool legend.
Oh, yeah.
And a Champions League winner.
Oh, best ever.
It's the bruiser from Bootle, Jamie Istanbulzai Carragher!
Yes!
This round is a 9-dart challenge. You'll both throw 9 darts, and simply the highest score will win. So, 1 dart nearest the bullseye to decide who goes first.
Oh.
That's outside the 25.
Can you take that one out?
Leave it.
No.
We'll be here all day otherwise.
What are you doing?
That was over the hockey. You need to throw it again.
No, hang on. He's disqualified.
Stay
he can
behind
go first. He can go first. Ban him, honestly. Go first. You're on. You're first.
Oh, God. It's off the board. 1. And 14 is 15.
That ain't going to be good enough, my friend.
20.
He's played before. Oh, no.
He went social
with Dad.
Oh, it's 24.
24. That's not good enough, that. Honestly, I'd let you off the hook there. I should put you away there.
4.
Ooh, not bad.
20.
Treble!
Treble 4. It's 36. So you're up to 51.
Why do you always panic? Oh,
Treble 12.
Are you still walking back?
Treble 5.
Go away. Go away.
And a 20.
I'll put you to bed.
71.
Gary,
up to 95.
Gary the treble, Neville. Put you to bed.
That's an 18.
Oh, it's not bad. Oh,
5.
Need a big one or you're dead.
3. And a 15 is 38. So you have a total of 89.
So has he already won?
I mean, you're already 6 ahead, so you've already won. But let's see if you can get a 180.
Don't worry.
Just for fun.
There you go.
Double top. 5.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by Henry Hill and Nancy Fielder. Amongst the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Eye. Its headline, Labour heading for new Brexit clash with EU on extra migrants. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Three, 2, 1.
We've got an election, haven't we?
We'll start with the rehearsals.
Let's do that again, one more time. You've got to be the best, but that is quite a lot of pressure.
It's just keeping up with everything.
You don't know what's going to happen day to day.
And being forcibly removed.
You've got to beat your journalistic competition. Every day matters.
That was a very tense interview, and I'm still slightly shaking.
You train hard and you fight easy, and I think that's what we're doing.
Independent, United Kingdom.
These last few years have seen some huge stories. And these stories have been driven by politics, by politicians, the people in power.
You must stay at home.
And it's my job to figure out how these decisions made by politicians impact all of us in our everyday lives.
This is the worst thing I've ever been through in my life.
People turn up here with their child stuff in a black sack and just say, I don't want to.
And that is what it is. It's first-class poverty.
Is this an example of the welfare state failing?
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
These are stories that affect us all. Millions of children are now having to catch up. Some stories have changed all of our lives. Because like the residents, the staff are being infected. Politicians, they make decisions all of the time, and it's our job to hold them to account. I wonder if you will take this opportunity to apologise to those families. But in the end, the real power doesn't actually lie with the politicians. The real power lies with the people. I'm Nick Martin. I'm the People and Politics correspondent at Sky News.
Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. But first, our top stories. Exit polls in France predict Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally Party has failed to win the French parliamentary election. Sir Keir Starmer has been in Edinburgh as he began his first nationwide tour since he became Prime Minister. Former Conservative Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi said the Conservatives need to regroup before the party considers who could replace Rishi Sunak as party leader. You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with Henry Hill and Nancy Fielder. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, The Guardian leads with the latest on the French election, with exit polls suggesting no single party winning an absolute majority. The Eye reports the new Labour government is heading for a new Brexit clash with the European Union over extra migrants. Housing targets are the centre of the Daily Telegraph's front page, reporting that there's an overhaul of planning rules on the horizon. Same for the Daily Mail, saying that the new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will reveal the government's plan tomorrow. And the Times reports Labour will announce the restoration of mandatory local house building targets while relaxing planning restrictions. I'll make every Brit better off. That promise from the Chancellor leads the Daily Mirror. The Daily Express says it's launching its own manifesto to put readers at the heart of holding the new Labour government to account. And the front of the Metro features the funeral of rugby league legend and motor neurone disease campaigner Rob Burrow. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Henry Hill and Nancy Fielder. Welcome to you both. Let us start with The Guardian front page and the exit polls from the French elections. A complete shock result and not at all what the polls had been predicting, Henry.
No, absolutely. In the first round of the French parliamentary elections, the Rassemblement National, that's the former Front National, the far-right party, they came first. They and their allies looked very well placed to win these parliamentary elections. And what we've seen since then is a really concerted effort by the left and the centre parties to coordinate against that happening. Loads of candidates stood down to avoid a three-way race where it might split the vote. So in many seats, the RN was suddenly facing one candidate. And that has paid off. The RN has come third. Emmanuel Macron's centrists are second, and the hard left coalition is in first place. Now, that is a much better result than a lot of people were expecting, but it does make things extremely difficult for the president, because the NPF, the left, have said that they're not going to prop up his government. They want their manifesto and their policies put forward, which are very different to his. Gabriel Attal, the Prime Minister from the centrists, has resigned. So it's not obvious how this Parliament is going to produce a viable government for France. So a good result in knocking back the far right, but not out of the woods yet.
Nancy, France has never been in this position before. They're in uncharted territory completely.
And I don't think anybody in France really knows how it's going to work out. So we're only going on the exit polls at the minute. We're still waiting for the votes to be counted. But to have they don't even know how the sort of relationships are going to form, who will work with who. It's obvious that the left is going to have to sort of pull together to get through. But I think there's a lot of people in France scratching their heads trying to work out how these groups are actually going to agree on the sort of key policies to be able to move forward. As you say, it's very welcome. Let's keep the far right out as much as we can. But now what do we do next is the question. And I think there's going to be an awful lot of sleepless nights while they try and hammer out the details.
And yet, Henry, we have seen so far on the streets of France celebrations. It was thought at one point that there might be riots, but complete opposite, and people actually having a massive party.
Yeah, France, renowned for its street political culture. There were a lot of police out in France ready for if this result went the other way. So clearly, you know, the photographs tell their own story. You've got lots of people online sharing split screens of the RN and the left reacting to the exit poll and so on. But I think, just to sound a slight note of caution on this, in 2002, when Jean-Marie Le Pen got to the French presidential election for the first time, I think that was the year, the entirety of the rest of French politics united against him, and he, I think, got about 17% of the vote in the second round. Now, the RN get to the final of every French presidential election, and while they haven't won this election, 10 years ago, the idea that they would even be in contention to win a parliamentary election would be absurd, and there are more RN MPs and allied MPs than ever before. So the pressure is really on. If the left and the centre can't put together a government that works, you know, 4 years down the line, we might well be back here and these photographs might look rather different.
And the warning from the National Rally is that this isn't the end of the story. This is just a showing of what they can achieve, and this is just the beginning. That they're warning in the speech this evening. Let us take a look at the Mail. We'll come back to domestic policy and Labour, what they're planning regards... Planning, actually. Nancy.
Yes, so here's our first ever female Chancellor, and she's come out fighting. She's basically all the things that the Tories kind of said they would do and then went weak at the knees when the backbenchers kicked off. She's saying, no, actually, the country's been held back long enough, on we go. And she is going to crack down on the planning rules, which is obviously going to lead to development on the green belt. That's where they're going to get into the fights. Massive, massive local fights. I mean, all our local newspapers write week in, week out about the fight to protect the green belt.
Is it a crackdown or is it a relaxing?
No, well, sorry, yes. She is relaxing, but what she's trying to do is crack down on all the things that they said they were going to stop. So you're right, it is. She's gone back to what actually was originally going to happen before the Conservatives got a little bit scared of the backbenchers. But I think what their big problem is going to be is the local fights. And actually, they've got a lot of areas where you've got a lot of green belt that people don't want to build on. The Prime Minister has renamed lots of it the grey belt, the ugly bits that are fine to develop. But we will see. I think this is just going to lead to chaos in some of our cities, villages, and particularly the countryside.
Henry, do you agree?
I mean, I certainly agree that with Labour now having a lot of MPs in formerly Conservative areas, many of them with relatively small majorities, this might be a lot harder to deliver than it would have been in other circumstances for Labour, because there'll be a lot of worried MPs. It's not what the Conservatives are doing. I think the problem with this is that they end up under-delivering, because these are very, very bold headlines. We're going to rip up planning rules. We're going to build on the Green Belt. But if this is the policy that was in their manifesto, it's really not all that much, right? So the plan is to designate some areas as grey belt, but that will take years to do because councils have to do it. But then the grey belt areas, they have special extra requirements for any development. They have to be 50% affordable. They have to be all kinds of other things. And that's a massive disincentive to developers because grey belt sites are already more expensive to develop. So it's a good headline, and it's absolutely true. Rachel Reeves is sort of correct. She's got the outline of the problem. We need to raise real wages and living standards, and we need to build infrastructure and housing. But from what we've seen so far, Labour's actual proposals to do these things do not live up to that rhetoric.
But they are saying that they're going to take the difficult decisions to boost economic growth. To the eye, Nancy, and the story here that Labour's facing its first clash with Brussels after the EU signalled it wants easier migration for young people aged 18 to 30.
And this is going to be particularly interesting. So what the EU is going to demand is that, like you say, 18 to 13-year-olds are allowed to travel more freely, that they're allowed to study here, to work here. And as we know, Labour is supported far more by younger people than the Conservatives are. So this is actually quite a mess for them to find. They're also, as you know, promising that they can get a better Brexit deal, that we can improve relationships with the EU. So they're straight away into that balance that we all knew was going to come of how do you actually deliver something that will keep the EU happy at the same time as not straight away getting the backs up back home.
But Henry, if this is reciprocated, it's win-win, isn't it?
Well, sort of, but I think one of the problems that freedom of movement always had is that there were far more, relatively, people who wanted to come here than people who did want to go and work in the European Union. You know, it was great for the people who did want to, but the overwhelming majority of voters weren't looking for jobs in France or Germany or anywhere else. And so that was they didn't value it the same way. And this is a challenge for Labour because Labour tried to run to the right of Rishi Sunak on immigration. Do you remember in the debate when Sir Keir Starmer said that Sunak was the most liberal Prime Minister we've ever had on immigration? And if Reeves wants to get wages up and improve living standards, well, one of the ways that you do that is you stop giving businesses access to lots of eager young people from other countries. So this Labour has lots of contradictory goals. It wants to improve relationships with the European Union. It wants to improve trade. It wants to prove that it can deliver on a credible immigration strategy, and those things conflict.
The universities will be desperate for this, though. We all know the crisis that's coming because less international students are coming, and I think they will see this as a really positive sign if Labour can work something out.
But as you say, mixed messages, because Foreign Secretary David Lammy calling for a closer relationship with Europe. What that is in detail remains to be seen. Let's have a look at the Telegraph and all eyes turning to the Tory leadership campaign. It hasn't started in earnest, but certain names have been thrown into the hat. We've got the wrong paper up there, but let's have a look at it's the Telegraph, where we're talking about the Tory leadership campaign. Who do we think we might see coming to the fore?
So this one. Essentially, there are already about 8 names being bandied about, and that is, at this point, a substantial chunk of the Parliamentary Conservative Party, because they've only got 121 MPs. But this is potentially a significant development because Suella Braverman, along with perhaps Priti Patel, was very much viewed as the candidate at the right end of the spectrum of this contest. She's the one who's been most voluble about coming to some accommodation with Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And Danny Kruger, who is a 2019 Sink MP, leader of the New Conservatives, another fairly significant figure on the right of the party, has withdrawn support, if ever he did it, or at least is not supporting her leadership bid. He's rowing in behind Robert Jenrick. Now, at these early stages, of course, we haven't even had declarations yet. There's still a long way to go. But that does suggest that Braverman is going to perhaps fail to launch, and actually that the battle on the right will come down to Robert Jenrick versus maybe Kemi Badenoch to lock up that side of the party. And they would probably, whoever wins that slot, is probably going to win, because historically you get a candidate of the right, you get a candidate of the rest of the party, and the candidate of the right normally wins.
Kemi Badenoch, the bookies' favourite, Nancy.
Yeah, I think the country's just kind of breathed a sigh of relief and is now laughing. How many times have we been through this? At least they're not picking their own Prime Minister to run the country. And a lot of the sound bites are, we're not ready for this, we just need to show a bit of respect and regroup. And actually they're not. They're coming out in exactly the same way, scheming, plotting. And there's Rishi Sunak saying, I don't want to hang on till autumn. It sounds like he wants to get gone. So they're going to have to do something. I mean, I'm not sure the list of candidates, small though it is, would tempt anybody outside the Conservative Party to vote for them, but they've got to do it yet again. So we sit back and watch what happens. Chaos.
We do indeed. Any names? Betting people? Quickly, a name?
Badenoch or Jenrick would be the two.
Yeah, Badenoch is what...
OK, we've narrowed it down. Thank you very much for the moment, Henry and Nancy. We're going to take a break. Coming up, we'll be discussing this in The Telegraph, which reports on speculation about the US president's health. Do stay with us for more.
This is all about improving the care of children with cancer. And it's a study into a genetic test called whole genome sequencing, which is available to all children with cancer through the NHS England Genomics programme. Whole genome sequencing is special because rather than looking at just particular parts of a child's cancer genome, we're able to look at the entire readout of that child's cancer genome. This means that we get lots of useful additional information that we show throughout the study, but most importantly, it can also change the care that some children with cancer receive. So, for example, through knowing that a child has a less risky form of cancer, we can give them less intensive treatment and therefore give them less toxic side effects from intensive chemotherapy. Whole genome sequencing is really being proved as the gold standard genetic test for children with cancer. And you're totally right to point out that one of the things that we showed in this study is that whole genome sequencing can reproduce all the genetic tests that we currently do on children with cancer. So often throughout their treatment journey, we'll do a whole host of different targeted genetic tests. But what whole genome sequencing can do is, at the point of diagnosis, get all that information in one test, which is a more efficient way to do it, and also gives that additional information which can go on to improve the care that children receive. As well as looking at the cancer genome, and you're right to say that every single child's cancer genome is individual to that cancer, and we can see that when we do whole genome sequencing. We also look at the genome that the children have when they were born. And that means we can think, is it more likely that they were going to have cancer when they were born through their genetic code? And therefore, for that child and also their family, as you rightly bring up, do we need to monitor that child and that family so we can better intervene or treat them if we need to? So as well as giving that cancer information, it also gives that information about the genome that the child inherited from their family and may also be shared with other family members, which, as you say, can be a real concern.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Henry Hill and Nancy Fielder. We're going to take a look at the Telegraph on the subject of President Biden and his state of health, really, medical condition. We're reading there on the front page that his doctor met a leading Parkinson's disease specialist
at the White House earlier this year. Information that's just coming out, Nancy.
Yeah, this story is not going away, is it? Every time he appears in front of the cameras, this is what people are watching for. They're not really paying much attention to what he's actually saying other than how he's saying it. And I think for an old man who clearly has health problems, we all feel a little bit of sympathy for the most powerful man in the world who is fighting to keep that job when there were clearly better equipped people behind him in the party who could take over. I don't have much sympathy for him at all. This is not going away. He's either going to step down or we're going to face probably Donald Trump because he's hanging in there so determinedly.
Yeah, we're showing the latest pictures of him with the First Lady there boarding a flight. But he has been adamant, Henry, that he is not going to give up the race and has said that, you know, only the Lord Almighty could stop him from continuing his race for the White House.
Yeah, and at that point, the prayers of many Democrats will be maybe turning in that direction because, honestly, it's remarkable. The Democrats actually have to take a share of the blame for this. They have passed up every opportunity that they had to remove him through a contested primary. And for this stuff has been coming out for over a year, and originally it was all dismissed as, you know, right-wing bloggers and so on with edited videos and all the rest of it. And now the dam has broken. And we saw after that first presidential debate, there was a 24-hour panic when the donors and senior Democrats were saying this has to change. And then it became clear that he wasn't going to go. And so they had to row back. But you're right, this is mad. The voters are not going to elect this man against Donald Trump. He's one of maybe the few Democrats who could really lose this election against Donald Trump. And yet, for whatever reason, he is refusing to step down. He could step down now and have an honourable legacy. He'd be the man who stepped up, who defeated Donald Trump in that election, served 4 years, and then passed on the baton gracefully. Instead, it looks like he's going to be remembered as the handmaiden of Donald Trump's second term.
But it's so late, isn't it? And the process, if it's not Kamala Harris, it means that all the money that they've raised has to be given back or can't be used in any further campaign. So it's a really difficult situation, actually, now for him to step down.
It is. It should have happened a very long time ago. I mean, you would have thought that he might have seen it himself, but he's just so doggedly hanging in there. And every day that passes, I mean, we know how long these elections go on for. It feels like forever, doesn't it, when we have our quite short campaigns? And it's just getting worse every day. I think the more he hangs in there, the more they're kind of stuck with him. And I don't know how you would turn around a very quick US election campaign. And Trump would love that, obviously, because then everything he said has come correct. But I still think it'd be better for him to step aside now.
Let's have a look at the Metro, and it was the funeral today of Rob Burrow, the rugby legend and motor neurone disease campaigner, Henry.
Yeah, I mean, it's always after a sort of very, very long weekend of politics. It's always nice to have a story that reminds you that actually life ticks on underneath all of that. And it's a remarkable send-off to a man who obviously tragically struck down by this disease, very high profile, and he managed to not just, you know, fight on through that, but he turned into a real force for good, raising money and awareness for a horrible condition. And the huge crowds at his funeral are testament to the impact that he's made on many people's lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with him really closely and his family. So the Metro says hundreds of people turned out. The Yorkshire Evening Post said thousands turned out, and it does look more like that. Yes. It was a very long funeral procession, and it brought tears to everybody's eyes. Just a lovely, lovely man who's you could just see the decline, couldn't you? I mean, motor neurone disease is an absolutely wicked disease. Lots of families suffer it for him. But for him to do it so publicly and to use it as such a force for good and raise millions, I think he's probably done... He's left a huge impact, hasn't he, in so many ways.
Absolutely. Let's finish with some football. Surprise, surprise. Henry, we're going through to the quarter-finals.
Are we?
Semi-finals.
Semi-finals. Come on, it doesn't feel real, does it?
Are they better than the quarter-finals?
Yes.
OK.
Just a bit.
Great, fine. OK, I genuinely know nothing about football.
Did you not watch the game?
No. I watch football occasionally with friends.
Let's talk about that. So it feels like this is really unreal. Let's be honest, we've all been on Gareth Southgate's back for a long time saying, look how awful we are. It did feel like we scraped through. I mean, the penalties were...
No, but those were absolutely emphatic, those penalties. Didn't miss one.
It was penalties.
I know, but
and
still.
all that extra time and all that agony. I mean, what a great goal. Saka got a great goal. I mean, the look on the future King's face, I mean, it was agony. Can we have a really convincing win? I mean, they've got the best players in the world. They've just got to get that act together. We can do this. It just feels a little bit nervy that if we couldn't do it more convincingly in the quarters, there's some big names if we get through to that final, you know.
We will. Let's think positive.
Positive. The country needs this.
Positivity. Henry?
Yep.
You with us?
Go England, I guess.
Yeah. The most reluctant football fan I've ever had in this studio. OK, we'll take that. Henry and Nancy, thank you very much for taking us through the papers for the moment. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, it will be quite cool and changeable to start the week, but should become more settled from Thursday. Most places will have a fine start, if a little chilly in places, but southwest England will be grey and damp. More of southern England and South Wales will cloud over through the morning with outbreaks of rain. Elsewhere, there'll be sunny spells, but showers will develop widely again, with the odd rumble of thunder possible. It'll be a little warmer than the weekend away from the south. The afternoon will take cloud across more of southern Britain, while more general rain will move into the southwest, locally heavy. The wind will pick up there too. Elsewhere, showers will become more scattered by the evening. Tuesday will see wind and rain spreading to many, but northern Scotland can expect sunshine and showers again. It'll stay on the cool side, but it will feel muggy in any brightness across the south. Wednesday will bring further spells of rain, but high pressure should settle things down from Thursday. Coming up next on Sky News at 11. Exit polls in France suggest the far-right National Rally Party has failed to win the French parliamentary election.